Right then. All of you should know that Spurs have had a really rough old season, despite the 2 wins recently to already relegated Wolves and a Villa side completely rotated apart from like 3 players because they have a European semi-final. So maybe don't look into that too much. But anyway, they started off obviously with Thomas Frank after they hired him from Brentford. They were brave enough to do it. And he largely flattered to deceive. They obviously started the season quite well in terms of points, but the performances and the kind of underlying data was suggesting they weren't playing particularly well. That eventually caught up on them. And he was sacked after that run of bad results that meant that he was replaced by Igor Tudor. He didn't do anything at all. I don't think they scored. Or maybe they did. I can't remember. It was really bad. But finally, after only about 3 or 4 games of Igor Tudor, they have Roberto De Zerbi in charge. And he's had 4 games, and we should probably talk about their recent form now, shouldn't we, Martin? So how does that actually look since he's come in?
So in the league, he had 4 games, and they lost the first game against Sunderland.
Hilarious.
I watched that game, 1-0 to Sunderland. It was a crap game. Sunderland deserved to win, pretty much. Then against Brighton, pretty close affair, 2-2, and Brighton got a last-minute winner, courtesy of our former player.
Basically was a winner.
Ruter. Yeah, basically. Because Spurs needed a win there. And but that was quite a close game. It could have gone either way. Then they beat Wolves. Whoop-de-doo, Basil. 1-0. Again, pretty nothing game. I didn't watch that one, but I did watch the Brighton and Sunderland one. And then I watched most of the Villa game. And in all the games I've watched, they have not really impressed me at all. They've cracked 1xG once in those 4 games. The other 3 games, they've had less than 1xG. So they've not really done a whole lot to change their attacking form. But I do think that maybe they're not conceding as many chances. That's probably the only thing I could say about their recent form. Prior to De Zerbi coming in, they had lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the previous 6 that I've got on this list in front of me, and a lot more before that as well. So he has done something, it's clear, but I don't know really what that is, because usually he's seen as more of an attack-focused coach, and so far it doesn't seem like they're doing a whole lot in terms of getting forward and attacking. So that is them in a nutshell recently.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about in and out of possession soon, but I will say, watching the Villa game, I was impressed mostly with Spurs out possession stuff. Thought they were pretty aggressive on them. Villa's players are probably a bit rusty because they don't play together very often, all their backup players, and they took advantage of that and they went after them, and it worked for most of the game. So there have been elements that have been better under De Zerbi, but there's still not loads to write home about. The XG data in each game, like you said, not cracked 1, but also quite a few of them have been quite close. So they've been probably a little bit fortunate not to have been worse off. The Wolves game could have probably gone either way, but Spurs took their one chance when it came at the back post. That's all that matters. And in the Sunderland game, it went the opposite way. And then in the Villa game, they probably were the slightly better team and probably did slightly deserve to win. And I'm glad that Georgie Ruter did what he did for Brighton, I have to say. So how are they playing in possession anyway under De Zerbi so far? Like, what have the changes been, if anything?
Well, I couldn't say as to what the changes were from De Zerbi to from what Tudor was trying to do. I don't think anyone really knew what Tudor was trying to do. But I can tell you what I've seen. They are quite focused on possessing the ball, and they do like to build up by the wide areas. One of the midfielders will drop in between centre backs to kind of create a base free to build up shape. You'll kind of see sometimes I think it's Pedro Porro has been inverting a bit and having the wide player on that side. I think it was Kolo Muani in a couple of the games I've seen, and Muani will stick wide, and Porro will sometimes invert, sometimes go wide with him, and they'll sort of overlap. But there's a lot of focus on the possession side of things. But there's also a big thing which they do out of possession, which we'll get into shortly. But they're not too patient in possession, I'd say. I think that it's not like with a goal, but I think they want to draw opponents out to try to get space. It's those artificial transitions which have become big since De Zerbi did so well with Brighton back before he moved over to France, and that's what they're looking to do, looking to draw players out to try to get some space to attack into. And I don't think it's really got that going yet with Spurs. But that took a long time for him to get going with Brighton to the levels that it was.
I think part of it's player profiles. I think there's two big issues in the Spurs team right now. One is the amount of forwards that are out, especially wide forwards that are out, that would have really helped him out. I think there was an article not long ago that I saw that De Zerbi really wanted to bring Kudus to Brighton when he was there. So he'd have loved Kudus. Doesn't have him. He's been injured. Doesn't have many wide forwards in general. They've had to use, even when it was Tudor, they had to use Porro as a winger one game because they just don't have enough wide players that mostly been injured. They're using Kolo Muani out wide sometimes now. Like, that's the situation they've come to. And the bigger issue regarding their build-up is the midfield profiles. I don't think loads of their midfielders are super comfortable at receiving deep. There's a couple, Bergvall, and I would say that Bentancur is pretty decent at that. I don't think Gallagher's great at that. I don't think Polina is at all good at that.
I think that's why he's been the one dropping between the centre-backs, Palhinha, just to give him that bit more space.
And he's just quite weak on the ball. I probably thought he was better than what he is when I saw him at Fulham. I think this season really showed that he's just not good in that respect whatsoever.
I remember my podcast with Quiche from Fulham, and he was pretty negative on Palhinha's ball playing.
I remember. I think in my eyes he was better, but you know, you either were watching good games where he'd looked good in that respect, or like, you know, you just weren't watching enough games and he'd actually been quite poor in that respect. And then Gallagher's an effort boy, really. Archie Gray, obviously we like him as Leeds fans. I saw a graphic recently that he's not very good under pressure. He's not one of those midfielders that does well when pressed. So it's partly probably because he's not been playing in midfield and he's not able to kind of get that going. Probably used to having a bit more time and space on the ball when he's playing at right back or at centre back, which he's been playing. So he probably needs to relearn that a little bit. I think he can be better in that respect and be a bit more pressure resistant, but he's not. They just don't have the profiles.
He's probably best suited as an 8 if you want him in the midfield profile, someone who can drive forward with the ball. That's what you want with him. And similar for Gallagher. I do like Gallagher. I think he's got a lot of assets in his game, but receiving deep isn't one of them. And
exactly.
Yeah, that he's got a few similarities to Sean Longstaff in his game, but with a bit more ball carrying. Just that's the kind of profile that he is, and they've built their midfield terribly.
Terribly. Utterly terribly. Obviously, this goes back to like years of mismanagement at the top for Tottenham, where they've had so many different types of coach that play so many different types of way that it doesn't all knit together nicely. It means you get recruitment for one style and then another and then another. And you've got this squad that has a bit of a mix of lots of different things, which can be beneficial in certain scenarios, but in this one, it really doesn't make any sense. It means the squad's been built quite poorly. Lou Orns has talked about this quite a bit recently, actually, on Twitter about clubs recruiting sort of profiles of player alongside the managers, and they stick with that. So Millwall getting an upgrade on Gary Rowett with Alex Neil, similar, very like in terms of their kind of philosophies and their understanding of the game, but Neil's like a slightly higher level version. He's upgraded Millwall and they've come third this season in the Championship. And I think the similar could be true of like what Tottenham have done, or what they should have done, should I say, where I think they should have recruited differently and recruited coaches differently. I think they'd be in a better place right now than they are. Let's put it that way. That's a very short answer to a very long, convoluted problem that's happened at Tottenham, but I'm not going to go into any more detail than that because I can't be bothered to, and I probably wouldn't be the best placed person to do it either. So let's talk about out of possession, what they're doing there. I think this has to be where they've seen the most upside, not necessarily in the first game, perhaps against Sunderland, but certainly last night I thought they were a much better team against Villa off the ball. What are they doing?
Most definitely. They can be quite aggressive at times. They don't always go super high press. It is more of an aggressive mid block, which they look to employ. So you can sometimes see where the players just kind of set up in like a 2 at the front and just looking pretty passive. But then as soon as the pressing triggers are hit, that's when the swarm and look to cause problems in that and to get turnovers in around the middle third of the pitch. And they look to be quite well coached in that. It's not always been something which De Zerbi has done excellently. It's been more about the in-possession stuff, which has been good, but it just seemed to have got them working better in terms of when to press and who to press, which is obviously a good thing. Out of possession is very important. Everyone says it, isn't it, these days, and it's true. For a big reason, coaches focus on it so much, and if you can disrupt an opposition's build-up in that way, that's great. But I will note that in the Villa game, Villa just really didn't do a lot to help themselves out. But obviously they'd rested a lot of players. But in terms of that opposition approach did really cause some problems, and it shouldn't have caused too many problems if it would have gone more direct at times. And I think that's going to be quite important in the game against us.
Yep, I'm not going to add anything at all. So then the question is, are there going to be any changes to usual against us? I think this is an interesting one. Obviously, this part of the problem with this question is that we're feeding into the Leeds tactics section here, Martin. But how do you think De Zerbi's going to play? They obviously need to win this match. This is must win in their situation. They can't, even if West Ham, in my opinion, lose to Arsenal the day before. I think it's the day before. It might be 2 days before. Whatever, over the weekend. I don't think Tottenham can suddenly just think, oh, a draw's fine at this stage of the season. They're going to have to try and win. That comes into this for them a little bit for sure. Are they going to attack us more aggressively? Are they going to press us even more aggressively? Like, what are they going to do, in your opinion, in this match? Do you think it'll be different to anything we've just said?
I think it'll be more aggressive than what we saw against Aston Villa. Because they were away there at Villa's ground, and I think more naturally they'll be more aggressive out of possession in this one against us. And also, I think they might see that they can cause us problems. Obviously, despite how good we've been doing recently, they wouldn't. I think they don't have the best players in deeper areas who are press resistant. So maybe they'll look to get us that way and look to force turnovers. But I still think it'll be mainly an aggressive mid-block that we face, just maybe with a few more moments of high pressing than what we saw against Villa. But in possession, I think they will largely look to do the same things that they have been doing in these games, and they'll be hoping to see more against us, in my opinion. But yeah, other teams haven't created loads against us recently, so they're going to have a tough prospect of breaking us down, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they have to be a bit more aggressive. I think they have to be more in our faces. Like, if West Ham lose this weekend and Spurs win, even though I don't like to admit it, this is their best chance of 3 points left, Spurs. They have 2 other games, sure, but this is easily their best chance. If they win this game, they could be, 4 clear of West Ham with 2 to play. Like, that is an insanely good position to be in. And then at that stage, that piles pressure on them. So they have to try and attack us. I think they'll probably attack us a little bit more with abandon than usual. It's probably going to be useful to us, but I'll touch on that later in our section. I think it could be beneficial, but we'll have to wait and see. In terms of their lineup then, Martin, they've obviously got an absolute ton of injuries. I'm not actually going to list them all. I can't be bothered. I haven't even got a list of them in front of me right now, but I wouldn't have got them because there's just so many. But he's usually a 4-2-3-1 kind of manager, isn't he? And that's what we're expecting. So what's that going to look like?
I think it'll be Kinski in goal, Porro right back, Danso and Van de Ven centre back, Udogi at left back, then midfield of Palhinha, and I think he's going to go Bizuma. I think maybe he might want a bit more physicality in this one against us because we've got quite a physical midfield. I think he'll want a bit more, but it could quite easily be Bentancur alongside Palhinha. That was a midfield that started against Villa. Then the forward line, it'll be Kolo Muani on the right because that's one of the few wide players that they've got at the moment. Conor Gallagher as the attacking midfielder. It could at times look more like a 4-3-3 with Palhinha dropping a bit deeper, and it's more Gallagher and Bizuma, but we'll see. Then Matisse Tell, left winger, and Rich Harlison, I'd say, he's the only striker that they've currently got alongside.
They play Muani there, but they can't do that because they don't have wingers.
Yeah, exactly, but I think Muani's looked good. He looked pretty impressive against Villa. He did some nice ball carrying there. So and I think he has played on the wing a fair few times in the past. He's definitely better as a striker, but he's more of a sort of a channel striker than anything. We'll look to hit those channels and get involved in wide areas. So he's well suited to play on the wide spaces.
Bloody loved him at Frankfurt. He's so fun. He scored so many goals. But Frankfurt have this habit of making strikers look good and then selling them for more than they're actually worth. And then they're not actually as good as you think. But yeah, the interesting parts there are I tell of someone they've been crying out for, Spurs fans, to play more all season. And it's taken injuries for him to play. And that ball with his weaker foot to Richarlison against Villa was glorious pass, glorious cross. Gallagher, we'll talk about like biggest threats in a second and kind of players that stand out. Gallagher in that role, people might be a bit confused. He's mostly played as an 8, sometimes even as a 6 in Championship, deeper player, like receiving ball. He's not that good at that, as we've mentioned. He's been playing further up because you don't need him to have that responsibility to build the ball up. But the other reason is, I think, to lead their press, to be the aggressor. He's very good off the ball. He led it really well against Villa. He was clearly their best player off the ball. And so, yeah, it's an interesting one, but it's working for him and for them. I agree with the lineup. It's obviously nowhere near as good as it could have been. There are some significant players out, like Xavi Simons is out for the season, out for the World Cup. I think
Solanke's out now as well.
Yeah, he's possibly going to be out of the World Cup as well. Kudus is out. There's just so many. Like, I'm probably forgetting another obvious one. James Maddison's only just come back from injury. He's probably not going to play any part yet, although he might be on the bench. But in terms of that team, then, Martin, who are the biggest threats? There are still some good players in this Spurs team, even though they are where they are. And I know people think it's a bit of an overrated squad, but there are still some threats there.
Yeah, there definitely is. I think for me, the biggest threat, at least in terms of goal scoring, is Richarlison. Total class player is Rishi. He brings a lot in terms of finishing and off the ball work rate, and he's definitely a threat there. And I think Kolo Muani is probably the biggest individual dribbling threat, but Matisse Tel can also do that as well. So they do have wide players, even when they are as depleted as what they are, who do have quality and can cause problems for us. Pedro Porro, he's got a decent shot on him for a right back and likes to combine and get into central spaces a lot and get shots off. And he's also got a decent cross on him as well. And then
an excellent cross,
fair. He is. But I think the biggest misses are the players who are out. I think if Mo Kudus was in, he would be a big threat for them, of course. Xavi Simons was really good before he got injured, unfortunately, which is good for us that he's also out. And yeah, despite how depleted they are, they do still have a lot of quality players in there. And funnily enough, I think they've been looking better defensively since Romero's been out, which is really funny considering he's their captain. But yeah, so still a lot of quality there, so we still have to be mindful of them. For sure.
Yep, they should sell a better 11 than us, for example, but maybe their bench won't be as good as ours, which is mental to say considering what Leeds' benches looked like back in our last Premier League stint, especially those Bielsa benches, goodness me. I think that Richarlison definitely deserves some love, the most in terms of expected goals and expected assists per 90 combined this season of any player in the Spurs squad. I think he's also someone with a lot of character for a relegation battle. You've seen it with Everton. Saw it with Watford, if you want to go back that far as well. Like, he's someone who's really, really good in these situations. Even if people don't like him particularly, I actually do quite like him, to be personally honest. And then Mo Kudus is, like you said, the bigger of the miss. He's one of the other players that's good for that stat. He's also, in terms of dribbles per 90, I think he's in the top 5 in Europe. So it's a shame that he got injured when he did for Tottenham, because he, such a threat for them just in terms of getting the ball and getting it up the pitch, driving them up the pitch. He was also really, really good at Ellen Road. He got a goal and assist, didn't he? So I'm glad he's out. But that doesn't mean we haven't got other players to be wary of. There are still some good threats on the bench too. I think Pat Matassar is a player I quite like. Jed Spence will be good fullback cover, and it's possible he could come in, to be fair, but I don't think he will. I think it'll probably be a doggy, as you said. So yeah, and then obviously there'll be Archie Gray somewhere within all this, somewhere on the bench. Yeah, that'll be sad. Underlying numbers then, obviously there's been 3 different managers this season, so we'll just kind of focus on the base underlyings, ignore the more stylistic underlyings. It's not been a great season for Tottenham, has it, Martin?
No, but the underlyings are just weird, just really weird. Like the XG, the 4th worst in the league with 36.4. But scored 45 goals from that 36 XG. I think that is massively in the first 10 to 15 games of the season under Thomas Frank. They were massively overperforming then, and that it's just gone away. And it's I don't think it will regress to the mean enough to make up for that massive overperformance earlier in the season, but it's bringing it down slowly. And the set piece XG, they're 10 for that, 12.88, and they've also scored more than that as well, 17 goals scored from that 12.88. Then in terms of against them, XG against is 8th worst, 49.93, and they've conceded more than that as well, so 54 goals conceded from that 49.93. And XG against from set pieces, 6th worst, 15.45, but they've only conceded 9 from that. So they're overperforming from set pieces in terms of stopping goals, but underperforming from set pieces in general from XG. So that to me says that their underperformance outside of set pieces is actually even more pronounced than what it actually looks to be at first instincts. Unfortunately, the Opta analyst does not tell you what the XG is for open play. I wish it did, but it just doesn't show that data on there. But I think it could be on other providers if you want to quickly find that while I'm talking. But yeah, they've got weird numbers this season in terms of the underlines and underperforming and overperforming. So it's hard to really say where their level is because of how much of that was early in the season. But yeah, it's pointless looking through all the stylistic stuff like fast breaks and high recoveries, all that, because it's just got so much noise in there and it's pretty much useless.
Yep, it is. I can't find open play XG on FOTMob, and I'm not going to check loads of different providers. We'll just keep going with the podcast.
Yeah,
so
that's
sorry.
that's
if you want to work it out, guys, you probably can. You could probably work it out from the numbers we provided you. To be honest, if you could be really bothered. But yeah, still, a squad that they have should have been a lot better than this, despite the injuries they've had. And I know they are top in the Premier League for injuries this season in terms of games missed, and we're bottom, which is crazy, but especially when you think Dan James had a bad injury, Sean Longstaff's had a fairly bad injury, and then we've had lots of little ones. I guess the little ones just haven't added up to enough. So we've done really well in that respect, and congratulations to recruitment for identifying players that they think are quite durable, even if their injury records don't suggest that, and also to the medical department at the club, the physios and all that. They've done a really good job. I actually met one of the physios in the summer, and I really wanted to make him a contact, but he wasn't having any of it. He was worried I was going to ask too many questions, so he he wasn't too keen on that. But I see him in a lot of the videos on socials and on YouTube, and it's always funny because he seems like a good lad. He's Scouse. If you've seen a Scouse physio, I've met him. He's very nice. Anyway, should we talk about Leeds? Is there anything else to talk about with Tottenham, or can we move on to Leeds?
Move on to Leeds.
Right then. Do you think we should be changing back to the 4-2-3-1 for this game? Probably not. Do you think we will? Probably not. So are you expecting it to be a back three again here against Tottenham? And what are you expecting the lineup to look like if that is the case?
So I'm definitely expecting a back three in this one. We only really expect it could be in the game against Burnley, and it wasn't, which we were quite annoyed about. We still won the game, of course, but it just would have been nice to see more 4-2-3-1 and just get more of our attackers involved. But I don't think that definitely this isn't the right game for that. We'll see a very, very similar lineup to the last one, in my opinion. Was there any new injuries? I think Okafor is the only one he went off limping a bit, I think. And I wonder if there's something there. He has obviously had issues in the past with his hamstrings, and it kind of looked like he was holding his hamstring. So it could be nothing, but I just saw that he was limping a bit, and who knows what that is. So
yeah, the unfortunate part of recording, we are recording on Monday.
There's quite a bit of guesswork here.
Probably on Friday, so we're 4 days of guesswork ahead of time.
But we never record before this. So after this conference,
it's very rare. It happens. Very rare.
It doesn't matter if it's even earlier than normal, to be honest. But yeah, the lineup, it'll be Jayden Bogle at right back. It'll be the same back three, I believe. Can't see right reason any different. Be all, be Roden, be Strauch. Left wing back, will be Justin. Then it'll be the same midfield that we saw in the last game with Stack and Tanaka and Ampadu. Then, depending on Okafor. I think if
Okafor's
Okafor
out,
is
it's
out,
it's
it'll be
Aronson.
Aronson. Yeah. So there'll be no. That'll be the
Whether
only
we like it
difference.
or not, whether we agree with it or not, I don't agree with it. I don't think it's the right profile. It will be Aronson,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
definitely will be. So yeah. So and then the other players obviously will be Calvert-Lewin on there as well. And I think that's everyone. I think I went through the full lineup there.
Yep, you did.
But yeah, that's most likely what it will be, with Stark operating as that kind of right-sided attacking midfielder kind of role that he plays. When, to be fair, he's been doing quite well in it recently, so
He's just
I'm
good
happy
at
to see that
football.
continue.
Like
He
he's
just
just
is, isn't
good
he?
at football.
No matter where you stick him in the pitch, he's just
I
effective.
genuinely believe he could probably play he's probably the player in our squad that could play the most positions. And it's probably the most
I'd back him at
versatile.
goalkeeper. I'd back him at goalkeeper
Well,
for
he's
sure.
tall, isn't he? So hopefully,
Yeah.
and he's a gamer, so he's had good reactions as well. So it probably would be okay there. He's probably the most likely to. In fact, we could have done that as a fun game at some point. Who's the outfield player that, if injuries happened, would have to go in goal? Who's the most likely? I think it probably would be him.
Most
The other
likely.
one, the other one I was going to say was probably, I could just see Calvert-Lewin being mad enough, going, yeah, go on, I'll give it a go. But
Joe Roden. I'm going to say that he'd make
yeah, he'd probably up there too.
a good fly goalkeeper.
Anyway, I think you're right. If we were going to discuss a bit further about that lineup, what issue that causes and raises, I think the main one I can think of is if Okafor is out, if that limping off was something more severe, hopefully it wasn't. And Goodmanson, we know, isn't back for this one. His earliest back is the next game. We lose our whole left side. That we haven't actually been able to play them both together very often. When they have played, they've played really well together, and it's our two best players at carrying the ball. So we definitely lose something there in the team. Aronson has a bit of carrying. Bogle does, I guess. Roden sometimes does from his position. There's not really many other. Stack can if you ask him to, because he's powerful enough to kind of run with the ball. But that's it, really. You're losing quite a lot in that respect of like how we progress play. So it might be that we have to look at, in terms of a unit, progressing the play slightly differently. Maybe using Tanaka and Ampadu in a certain way. That means you can progress the ball up the pitch. Having said that, I don't really like when we've tried to do deep build-up stuff this season like that. So I'm not hugely keen on it, but we might have to, just because we don't have enough other ways to get the ball from A to B.
Just yeet forward Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah, and that was going to be the next thing I was going to say. The third option is the yeet option, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like the players are often instructed to do that very often lately.
Well,
anyway,
they should be.
Yes, they should. We have gone away from that slightly as the season's gone on. We kind of went to it and then away from it. That middle part of the season, we're probably doing it the most, and we've gone away from it a bit. But anyway, based on the lineup we've said, and let's say Okafor is fit, touch wood, which player will cause them the most problems in this one, in your opinion?
I think it will most likely be Okafor and Stark if Okafor's able to play. Then I'm hoping he does, because we'd be massive if he can play. So he would definitely cause them the most problems. But I do think Anton Stark will cause any team problems just through a combination of his out of possession work and in possession work. Just is a really hard man to deal with, because he's so big, he's so strong, he's deceptively quick as well. He covers ground so quickly, and he's going to be a problem for them. I do think that they could have a handful in terms of the set pieces. I think we'll probably have more set piece threats than them, because we've got quite a lot of big guys in this squad, and they don't really have many who are in and available. Danso is reasonably strong aerially, but I don't think Van der Ven is really strong aerially. I mean, he's not weak, but I just think that we do have more better aerial threats than what they do. So I think set pieces could be quite a strong area of the game in this one for us. They've been relatively okay at set pieces themselves, like 10th on the underlying numbers, but that was earlier in the season when they had more of the players available. And players like Dom Solanke, who's, although he's not the tallest, is pretty decent aerially. So I think that'll be a big part of the game for us. And Calvert-Lewin will always cause problems for any side, because he's just a handful. He just annoys centre-backs constantly. Just, you'd hate to play against him. You really would, because he's just aggressive all the time. And that's what I like most about him. He's just always up for it. He's just always gives passion, always gives you all that he's got, leaves everything on the pitch, and I'm sure the Leeds fans love him for that part of his game, just despite how pretty he is, which is just an enigma, being that gorgeous, but also being as aggressive as what he is.
He's also, he's on 14 goal involvements, 13 goals, 1 assist this season. Calvert-Lewin, he is really close probably to making that England squad. He's going to be just missing out if he misses out. I know he didn't play great in the internationals. If he wants any chance, he probably needs to score at least one more goal in these 3 games, I would say. And if he does that and he plays well in them, I think he might just make it in.
Yeah, I think he could, because especially with Dom Solanke getting injured.
Mm-hmm. It's just Watkins and Calvert-Lewin, really.
Watkins hasn't really been in form, has he? He's not.
His recent form has been, so that's why it's interesting. That's why I think Calvert-Lewin needs to do something here. Not necessarily in this game, but in these 3 games, I think he needs to get at least a goal.
I think he's done enough recently, especially since he got a goal in this one and he got the pre-assist. No, he won't count for anything, but I'm sure if Tuchel is watching, he won't just be watching the assists and the goals. He'll be watching all the actions that they're involved in, and that was definitely a really good action. But yeah,
unfortunately against the worst team in the league, but we can gloss over that. Yeah.
Hey, we'll be playing plenty of shitters in the World Cup, hopefully.
Hopefully, indeed. Yeah, so I think he's obviously a player here that will be chomping at the bit to do well. As you say, set pieces is still massive. When we do play these 3 centre-backs, and we've still got Calvert-Lewin on the pitch, obviously Stack's tall, but he'll be taking them. That's still 4 massive players to aim at. And that's without even mentioning that Ampadu's got decent size. Justin, if he's in there, has got decent size. They're not small. Hello, Cat. And then you've got a few others that'll probably be Tanaka at the back post. We'll know he likes to crash that area if he's able to. So we've got plenty of threats for them to think about from set pieces. So hopefully, again, take some shots and it might go out for a corner. That's going to be one of our best ways to score. So I agree with you. Is there anyone that we might think might struggle in this one in terms of our players against their lineup that we suggested? There probably are a few.
Yeah, there is some. I think the midfield battle's going to be interesting. If it does end up being Bizuma who starts alongside Palhinha, then that gives you a really physical midfield, especially with the element of Conor Gallagher further forward as well, who I see as probably a stronger version of Brendan Aronson. I know that's not hard because Brendan isn't exactly the strongest, but Gallagher is pretty strong, and that would be an interesting battle alongside our pretty physical midfielders as well. Colin Mwani will be a handful for Justin to deal with, but I think I actually back him in that battle. He's usually quite solid defensively and doesn't give too much away. Maybe if Colin Mwani can get him up against Pascal, that could be an area of danger for us. If he can get isolated against Strauch, then that maybe could cause us problems. Can you think of anything that I've missed here?
Not really. No. I was going to look at other matchups for the game. I don't think there are many others. Our wide centre backs, if Tell and Colin Mwani isolate them, that could be quite scary. But
go down, Ivor.
I just think, that they're not in the best shape still, and I think they're going to be a lot of nerves for Spurs. And that can affect the players. We haven't even mentioned one thing, which definitely plays into this. Probably should have mentioned this in the first section, but I'll mention it here anyway. In terms of away and home form, it's night and day for Tottenham. They've won 2 home games all season. I think they've won 7 away. I'm going to look now. Got it. So Spurs, in terms of home form, are the second worst in the league with 2 wins and 10 defeats in 17 matches. In terms of away form, way better, the third in the league, 7 wins and 6 defeats in 18 matches. So
I wonder how many of those come under Thomas Frank, who is a counter-attack focused manager.
Of course, but I still think it plays a part here because they'll be nervy, the fans. And so they probably want their wide players, if you're looking at anything, for them to get at us and create a bit of excitement. That gets fans going when a winger takes on a fullback or a wing back and beats them. So that's probably the area of the pitch where I think they'll look to target us. I think he'll look to get overloads. Porro's obviously an amazing overlapping fullback, a really, really, really good crosser of the ball. If they can get him combining down that side, I think that's a route to goal for them. but I'm not overawed by them at all. Like their bench against Villa was just really, really not great. Dragusin obviously just come back from injury. Sosa's young, Gray's young, Madison unused in the last game, probably will be again. Sarr and Bergvall and Basuma are giving something, and Spence isn't a terrible fullback, but it's not amazing, I have to say. So I'm not overawed by that squad by any means. And I don't think our players should be. So hopefully we're up for it in a mental aspect, and they're not as up for it, and that makes a bit of a difference. If we can start well, that will also help. And this leads me into the next question nicely. Any changes to our tactics for this one, either in or out of possession? I think we need to show a bit to get the crowd nervous for them and our away fans, because there'll be a lot of them. They give loads of tickets. Our away fans more noisy. Obviously, we should be confident as it is with the league table as it is. We might already be safe and might be able to play with that freedom. Although that can go the other way with beachiness, but I don't think this Leeds team are going to be beachy at all. There are some Premier League teams that happens to. It's just not going to happen to us. I think we're going to want to finish as high as possible, and so I think we'll kick on. So yeah, do you think there'll be anything different tactically in this one for us, in or out of possession?
I can't see there be anything major differences wise, but just want to speak a quick bit about the sort of out of possession approach, which I think would work in this one, because I think Villa got it totally wrong. With Roberto De Zerbi, he does want you to press aggressively sometimes, and I think he did that with Brighton because he had a lot of press resistant players in the deeper areas, and I don't think Spurs really have that as much. They've got a couple who are decent press resistance, but the midfielders aren't the most so, especially Palhinha. So I think you can get at them a bit more in terms of an aggressive press, but I wouldn't want to go too overboard. Like I wouldn't want to see what we was doing against Burnley, for example. But I also wouldn't want us to be passive like Villa were, because then that just leads to the similar sort of issue that we had against Chelsea. If we're not being aggressive in the right areas, then that could cause us problems. I mean, I don't think we should start with a 4-2-3-1 like we changed to in the Chelsea game, because I think it's a different set of teams and it's not always going to look the same. And I think Chelsea have more press resistance in their midfield pair than what Spurs do at this point in time. So I think that we need to get our out of possession approach correct here and get that nice balance of sometimes backing off a bit, soaking up pressure, sometimes being aggressive, just knowing the right moments to do it, which is a difficult balancing act. But I do think it's something that we have seen from this side in this season. We just need to make sure we try to get it as right as we can in this one, because as much as Spurs have been bad for a long time now, they've still got a lot of quality players and we have to respect them.
Really can't add too much. I don't think it's worth it either, because it kind of leads into the cost question nicely, which is, I'm actually going to ask this the other way around, but just because I'm feeling a bit freaky. Why will the game be won or lost then, Martin, based on what you just said there? And also, what do you think this game of football will look like in the end? Do you think we'll do what you just said?
I don't know is the answer to that, because I've been expecting one thing recently. Like I wasn't expecting this to be as aggressive against Burnley as what we were. I was expecting this to maybe sometimes be aggressive, sometimes not, but we were aggressive pretty much for the full 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. But with this one being away from home, we could be a little bit more passive than what I'd maybe like. So I think maybe we will sit off them a bit and they'll have possession of the ball during most of the first half, but I'm hoping that we can look to hit them in transition, because they're not the best coping with transition attacks I've seen in some of these games. And although we are missing some of our better transition attackers in Gabby Goodmanson, and who knows, hopefully Okafor is available, and if he is, that would give me a bit more hope in terms of attacking them in transition. But to get a win out of this one, I do think that we just need to finish our chances, and I think whoever... I don't think there's going to be loads of chances in this one. In the few games that I've seen of Spurs under De Zerbi, there hasn't been one team who's been sort of laying into the other one and creating lots of big chances. It's usually been separate, maybe two big chances apiece at most. So when we do get those chances, we need to take them. And if we don't, we'll lose this one.
It does smack to me of late winner either way, because I think with games like this, and it doesn't always happen. There were games over the weekend, for example, where you really felt like there was going to be a winner in one of them because, well, at both ends, both teams, like if you know, had a team at the top playing a team at the bottom of the EFL in whatever league it was, just like, oh, you'd expect a winner because they're both fighting for something. It can't end in a draw. Those kind of games where it becomes so stretched late on, can't end in a draw, can't end in a draw. Here, especially if we're already safe, we can take that chance. We can stretch the game out late on if they want to commit playing forward because it's 0-0 or it's 1-1 and they want to go
draw
for that
is
winner.
fine for us.
It absolutely
We'd
is. But
take a draw all day long.
I don't think I would now unless West Ham get something against Arsenal. Then I would. But if Arsenal beat West Ham, we're safe. It's mathematical. And if that's the case,
Spurs have to win this one, basically.
Spurs have to win this one. So that plays into our hands, I think.
It's a must win. For us, it's just, not lose.
Exactly. It could be even not even a must not lose game because we could be safe. And if that's the case and it becomes stretched because they're attacking late on, I think we're allowed to commit men forward and we're allowed to try and punish them. And so I'm expecting a late winner. If it is level, in the 80th minute, I'm expecting.
It could even turn quite basketball this one. If
in the last sort of 15-20, I could see that. But it's just for the rest of the game, I'm hoping. Maybe this is more hoping than what I'm expecting. What the question asks: what will a game of football look like? What I'm expecting, what I'm hoping is slightly different. But what I'm hoping for is Leeds can maybe manage this game and control this game by making the crowd more frustrated, by making Spurs annoyed and sort of struggle to break through us around the midfield and defensive areas. We don't have to sit super deep, but just make it really scrappy and annoying for them, and they'll get frustrated, and then maybe we can turn the game late on when it's level, if it's 0-0, and we can nick it 1-0. That's the kind of game I'm kind of hoping for, and kind of what I think could happen. But I don't know if that will. If we get this wrong, if we do some of the things you said, then there's a chance that Spurs actually might just race into a couple of goals because they will want to start quick. And if we don't manage the game early on, they will. And then I just think it might get away from us then. But hopefully, none of this is mattering much anyway. It's all immaterial because West Ham have lost their game against Arsenal, and we can just kind of enjoy ourselves after that with these 3 games. And the game plan can change a bit. I know Farke Russell want points and we'll still want to get as high as possible, but it doesn't have to be as risk averse. It doesn't have to be as 0-0 is fine for Leeds.
I don't mind playing as late as what we are this weekend in this one. I think
it suits us.
Works in our favour, and it doesn't work in Spurs. This is twice now that Spurs have played last, I think.
Absolutely, you're correct. It really, really does work in our favour because we'll either know a point gets us completely safe or a win, whichever, doesn't really matter. But avoiding defeat gets us completely safe, or West Ham managed to beat Arsenal and then we're not, and we probably need to play this one slightly differently later on anyway, at least that last 20 minutes. But the last 20 minutes is going to be the most exciting bit of the game if the score is either the same or level or similar, sorry, I should say. And that's what I'm excited about in this one. And maybe the West Ham game on the final day will also be the same. We will be safe by then, I am convinced. But mathematically safe, I'm sorry. I'm convinced, but hopefully that kind of game is similar in that one, and we maybe have a bit more power in our hands to control the outcome at the bottom. That could be quite fun, couldn't it? Anyway, I think that's everything. You finished? Yep, lovely. Patreon.com/ASAW Patreon is where we'll have lots of stuff coming out quite soon now, really. We'll probably do some awards and some other bits and pieces, and then it'll be into a summer of what profiles we need, what positions we need to upgrade, and then looking at actual players in those positions to upgrade. So it's quite a fun time. You should come and join us over on Patreon, patreon.com/ASAW Patreon. Please like and subscribe if you are watching this on YouTube. It would be massively appreciated. If you haven't already liked, just smack like now. It's really easy. It doesn't actually cost you anything. It doesn't do anything. It might push our content more onto your feed. Oof, that's so awful. But just do it anyway. And all that's left for me to say is thank you very much to Martin as ever.
Thank you as well, Adam.
And thank you everyone for listening. We hope we've been insightful today. And we'll be back to review this game and preview Jorginho Ruter's return to Ellen Road very soon. Anyway, we'll see you soon. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching as well.